kind of like a, I think people like Mike because I'm kind of a unique kind of character.
You just see how games and possessions are more intense, how they mean more. I think the U.S. is going to obviously win.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Nothing But Respect. I am completely naked podcasting because I have retired from dressing. I am joined by Patrick Redford. He is in a full Mason Margiela gimp suit. He is a writer at Defector, and we are talking basketball and clothing in the election. Patrick, how are you?
I don't agree with all of his political stances, but, participating in democracy is important. So I'm planning to vote for Joe Biden tomorrow. I'm not excited about it, but, it's what we got to do.
Yeah, no, it would be one of the greatest, two-peats of all time, right? It would be kind of like the kind of maybe the rickety Spurs doing one more trip, right? If an aging geriatric Tim Duncan can do it, maybe Joe Biden can as well.
Yeah, I think I people are pretty skeptical about his chances. I see Nate Silver here gives him a 0% chance, but the defending champs, they always count them out until a repeat is possible. So I'm excited to see what he's got cooking tomorrow.
Like all these aging dynasties love to now call themselves or their final season The Last Dance. So what about a Joe Biden style Last Dance documentary?
In a purely physical sense, I think his last dance probably occurred like 12 to 15 years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then, I took that personally. Like him staring at a wall.
I just realized there's no regular season basketball on election day, and they've done that for a few years now, right?
They have, yeah, right. So we it's funny because one of the things we're going to talk a little bit about the election and its relationship to basketball, and we'll get a little serious, but then you'll get your patented Nothing But Respect goofiness in the second half. But it was funny. What made me start thinking about the election as it pertains to basketball was I was watching, some random TNT game, and I saw an ad for like kind of one of those classic NBA, go out and use your voice to vote this Tuesday. There'll be no games. And it reminded me of like, oh yeah, I guess there are never any games on election night since the 2020 pandemic or 2020 election Wildcat strike and all that stuff. And so I started kind of going back into like what that Wildcat strike was like, which for those who don't remember, in 2020, Jacob Blake was shot by Milwaukee police, and or maybe it was a town right outside of Milwaukee, but whatever, in that area, right near Milwaukee, and that prompted a series of events that was a Wildcat strike started by the Milwaukee Bucks, started reportedly by George Hill, who was a guard on that team, which then kind of ballooned into this bigger strike. And so I want to talk about all that. But first, what do you remember about the Wildcat strike? Because one of the things that, in going back and reading about it, a lot of it got memory hold for me personally, and I think collectively. But I was just struck by how totally insane all of that feels now that they were sequestered in this hotel in Orlando, and just that it was this crazy moment of racial justice and racial justice reckoning and all that stuff. I just was like, wow, I forgot how fucking crazy all of that was.
It's the strangest thing about the NBA strike is how quickly its legacy, like I guess how small of a legacy it seems to have had. Like, it was this incredible moment of like the players sort of coming together and thinking about themselves as like basically like backdooring into the labor theory of value. Like, you have Kyrie being like, why do we need owners?
Right.
LeBron, I remember LeBron was, I think, sort of against it at first, and he said basically like, if we're going to do this, like, why are we even here in the bubble? Like, we should just leave. Like, it was a bit of brinksmanship from him. I remember the Obama call. The effectiveness, I of which I think I downplayed maybe too much at the time, just thinking like, there's no way that like Obama of all people would be the guy to step in and call LeBron and Chris Paul and say, basically shut up and dribble. But like, that is a crazy thing. I remember education reform on the back of Gordon Hayward's jersey and group economics on the back of Anthony Tolliver's jersey.
I don't remember Tolliver. Yeah. Yeah, no. And so when I was, cause you know, this is not a politics podcast. This is a basketball podcast. But I did find myself as I was looking back through all of this, I was thinking that one helpful thing to remember about all of this is just how everything went down, because I totally agree that the lasting legacy of the strike is its lack of legacy.
And also, like, think about how bad the CBA was that they negotiated right after. Like,
right.
This wasn't even that, like, it's a labor action, but the players as such did not become like a stronger and more coherent political force. Like, even on that side, there's not much of a super strong legacy.
Totally. And I think we'll get to this eventually, but I had the thought that we have more and more, since 2020 to now, we have exponentially more access to the direct minutia of what players are doing and thinking about every day. And simultaneously, it seems almost as if NBA players have less political power, or there hasn't been as much of a kind of like a powerful political moment coming from the players since then, despite us having, 70,000 player podcasts.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is like how much of that is particular to the players and sort of their moment in like labor and politics, and how much of it is just generally part of this like anti-politicization thing we have going in the culture.
Yes. I was thinking about that too, about how I remember talking a little bit, because I was working with spinsters right after the bubble season, and when we would talk to journalists just sort of about the pulse of the NBA, one of the things that we kept hearing was just how fatigued and burnt out the players were about just because, me sitting on my couch reading about this 4 years later, I'm like, that's crazy. Imagine living it like that. They were, really burnt out. And
this is in the bubble, right?
I'm talking about burnt out from the bubble. So I'm talking about basically everything from the season ending abruptly, Rudy Gobert, fondling the mic, into they're sequestered in the bubble, or they're about to be sequestered in the bubble. There's the George Floyd murder. Then there's a number of sequential other ones. There's this belief of like, do we even go? Is this the right thing we do? Then they go. Here's something that jumped out to me looking back on it, is that it was really crazy that 400 of the, or maybe let's say 300 of the most, I'm not coming up with fake numbers here, but 300 of the most 5,000 influential black men in America were in like sequestered doing their job in Orlando during a historical racial uprising, or racial kind of reckoning moment.
And we're sort of charged by dint of being some of the only live entertainment that was still happening. They were charged with helping like the country manage their sort of collective psychosis too.
Totally.
Like there's so much attention being paid, because like I just remember, and so much of the pandemic coverage was just sort of focused on like, Americans are bored. Right. And like, we need our entertainment back. We need our good stuff on TV. And like this sort of role of sports was like a very interesting, like it was talked about in very interesting ways. And I think inflated to like a weird, like really high level of importance, where people just kind of talked about it like, watching basketball is this like nationally important pastime because it gives us something to do.
Right. And yes, no, exactly. That there's just in sum a tremendous amount of pressure on these athletes. In a we were all suffering in our own way, right? I was sequestered to my fucking Crown Heights apartment, but they were also deeply sequestered. So I want to just quickly go through the events in order, because I was, again, just struck by how much I forgot and how much I feel like it will give the effect. It is almost self-evident about how much this has been memory hole. So here, this is a profile from the New Yorker. This is after the George Hill basically decides that there should George Hill kind of this murder, or this shooting happens. Forgive me, not a murder. The shooting happens. They're about to, the Orlando Magic and the Milwaukee Bucks are about to play Game 5 of a playoff round, and nobody comes out on the Milwaukee side. There's this kind of powerful shot as Vincent Cunningham in this very good New Yorker profile shows, of just this empty arena, and with the Black Lives Matter and embossed on the or painted on the gym floor, and the Milwaukee Bucks players are not coming out. Nobody really knows what's going on. There's probably people are tweeting, I suspect, on Twitter about like, oh, what's going on? Is this a strike? They decide it becomes somehow, maybe publicly, maybe either Doc Rivers or somebody gives a statement about like that there is going to be a strike. Maybe it was Chris Paul. I don't exactly remember. But then there's this cascading effect. The whole slate of games for the night. This is from Cunningham's profile. The Houston Rockets against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Los Angeles Lakers against the Portland Trailblazers was called off. The WNBA, whose players have again and again showed a readiness to involve themselves in issues today, canceled its Wednesday night games. In Major League Baseball, which nobody thinks of as a hotbed for activism, the Milwaukee Brewers decided not to play their evening games, and other leagues subsequently joined them in sitting out. Major League Soccer, which had been the first American sports team league to not make its return, also stood down. Kenny Smith, the retired point guard and celebrated broadcaster, walked off the set of Inside the NBA on TNT in solidarity with the players.
I forgot about everything but the Kenny thing. I remember basically anytime a game or a studio show would start, like I remember Chris Webber doing like a really big monologue, and then being in conversation with Brian Anderson. I remember the Kenny thing, but I forgot that the baseball guys of all people walked off.
It's really, I read this and I was like, that is, and I remember feeling this way at the time, but in this sort of schizophrenic, fleeting way that everything sort of felt back then, where I remember being like, this is crazy, but so is everything else. Looking back on this, I'm like, I got a little emotional. I'm like, this is amazing. This moment of cascading political action, and it really reminded me of something we probably all sort of intuitively feel, but just like how thin the membrane between kind of status quo and madness is, that this could happen at any time, a Wildcat strike that just, okay, there's no TV on anymore, ever.
Yeah, just like that this whole apparatus feels so big and so unwieldy. Like you think about like, how the CBA goes X number of years, the salary cap is X, teams have these like very certain plans many, many years out, but like these little ruptures are super possible. And like, it can be someone as, I don't think he's even in the NBA, someone as relatively insignificant as George Hill, who just like starts the ball rolling. And I don't know if the Cunningham piece talks about this, but I remember happening right after this is that all the players from the bubble just like did a huge players only meeting of like hundreds and hundreds of them, and really kind of had it out and figured out like, okay, what are we doing here? It's like, there's this China Mieville book I really love called October, which is about the Russian Revolution. Okay. And it's sort of like an oral history based on meeting notes. And I think I had read it sometime around this, and that's just sort of what it reminded me of just like, these guys holding a tremendous amount of political possibility in their hands, but also like kind of far out over their skis. Like there's not a grand tradition of labor activism within the NBA PA or anything. And do you remember how many days they were striking for? Like how long this eventually lasted?
God,
I remember it being very short.
I think it was only one game. So I think it was one day of the game. So I think it was basically 24 to 48 hours. So in that way it was short, but again, it's just funny how to think about how big these and I think you put it well, how big and unwieldy these machines are, which is like it was probably like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of ad revenue got lit on fire over those course of days. If you think about how many sporting events were run at that time and how you just pausing that, it gunks everything else up.
Yeah, looking at it now, it was they resumed. They walked out on August 26th and resumed play on August 29th.
Okay. There you go.
Naomi Osaka sat out her match. And NFL teams weren't playing, but a bunch of them like canceled afternoon practice and stuff.
Okay, that's pretty funny. Shout out to them. Yeah, I guess
I remember when the NFL came back shortly later. They put a like. I forget what exactly it was, but it was like end racism at the end of the end zone in like font size 8 or something. Like it was the tiniest little gesture where it's like they wanted their fans like, please don't say that we're against racism. And like I think it was Kansas City was the first game, and like the PA was like, and now a moment of silence for racial solidarity, and the fans booed.
I mean, right, and it's what we're laughing at is actually worth talking about, because there is this tension here between the pithiness of slogans and like how there is something funny about putting economic reform or group economics on the back of your jersey, just like how kind of laughably corporate and stupid that and ineffectual that is. And there's this kind of deeper, more complicated question at the heart of, I think, what Obama ended up saying to LeBron and co, which is like, are you going to have more success striking, or are you going to have more success asking for specific kind of incremental demands? And that basically gets at a proxy for like every argument on the left, period, you know?
Yeah, it's funny how non-specific that sounds if you just remove the names LeBron James and Barack Obama from that sentence.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it could be right. Exactly. And I would never, I don't know what the answer is. Sometimes I read that and I'm like, this strike was such a missed opportunity for radical change. And if this has gone like 3 weeks, can you imagine how important of a political moment it would have been? And then sometimes I think about like, yes, it is probably good, and there are all these nameless people that have been helped by money funneling in from the NBA into various nonprofits that you know help Milwaukee organizations do watch police better, and that is tangible, you know. So,
and I found myself feeling very just like in 2020. I think I was losing my mind along with everyone. I found myself feeling very cynical about just like, oh, they're going to increase the size of the Black Lives Matter font on the court or whatever. But like, it really is kind of wild to think about like that the NBA just let anyone put almost anything on the back of their jersey and was like really kind of down for letting the players like dictate how this went and like set the tone and have these like pretty big, like gnarly, serious conversations in a way that like is totally not present anymore. And while I do think it was a missed opportunity, it also like the conditions for that strike were so like it was because of the bubble. It was because of 2020. It was because of like how big and serious the Floyd protests were at the time that like you get those conditions. And so I find myself like, you know, they weren't going to push for full, you know, armed revolution or whatever, but like, I don't find myself as disappointed as I was all those years ago. Maybe that's just because I'm older and more washed and willing to accept worse outcomes. But like, I don't know. Like, I think about like all the stuff Jaylen Brown was saying, you know, how every player just had a microphone in their face and could just hold forth about racial justice. Like that was a real moment, you know?
Absolutely. And I want to move into a sort of cousin of this, which is the ironic second act of Kyrie and some of the more like unseemly to liberal audiences political outspokenness, and how that has affected people's understanding of player podcasts, but why I mean player podcasts, player politics. Jesus.
Kyrie Irving, do not start a podcast under any circumstances.
God. But if you do it under the DNR podcast network, please. Because Jay Caspian Kang wrote, I thought, an extremely prescient and kind of nuanced piece about all of this, looking back at the protest, but then also putting it in context with the vaccine stuff, and essentially what Kang is saying, which I think I agree with what you're saying, is and where I get a little bit, where I think remember all of this a little bit more fondly, is I just have less. I don't look for athletes to be the head of my political movements. There's you. What Kang kind of preaches, I think he might even end the piece with the phrase "it's not that deep," which is a little bit of a thesis statement for it of like, yes, these are important political statements, and it's important to remember that these are their job is not to sit around thinking about political thought and leading people. They're most of the time they spend like doing stuff has to do with basketball. And there's this fine line between, and that doesn't mean everything they say about politics, and certainly they have more to say about being a Black American than I do, and there's all kinds of valid places to take them at their words with extreme importance, and there's some to not.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing to think about here is like, consider how much coverage like Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich got between the years like 2016 and 2022, where like anytime something would happen, Kerr would go to his press conference and they would say, Klay Thompson 3 for 14, what do you think about his shooting? And he's like, I'll tell you a shooting we need to think about and we just hold forth. And I remember like, when I was working at Deadspin at the time, we would blog those quotes and they would do big traffic. And I remember, and I think I still feel this way, like thinking, wow, it's like kind of brave that like he cares about this enough to like step back from the basketball of it and like make a point about this thing he cares about. But then the sort of, I don't want to use the word mistake, but what people I think would overinflate the importance of this and say like, okay, one of the most famous basketball coaches has now declared gun violence bad. Like this is going to move the needle and this will be like prescient and relevant to like the actual politics of it. And I think disentangling like culture from politics requires a sort of more, essentially like a more fully formed perspective and a more critical lens in a way that like sports consumption. And I think this is maybe kind of what Kang is getting at, is like sports consumption and politics are like basically two different languages and are not compatible with each other.
Yeah. And it gets more and more complicated as the concept of a celebrity becomes flatter and flatter, right?
That's such a good way to put it. Yeah.
So the maybe we'll kind of end on this to perhaps remember who our true enemies are, which is a unbelievably evil quote from Jared Kushner,
who is personal friends with Adam Silver. We should mention.
Absolutely. Good note. NBA players are very this is like days after the strike. NBA players are very fortunate that they have the financial position where they're able to take a night off from work without having to have consequences to themselves financially. So they have that luxury, which is great. Like,
from a guy who quote unquote solved the Middle East, I think we got to take him seriously on this one. I mean, that's the thing is like, I joke about him being friends with Adam Silver, but like, I think the legacy of the strike that I'm actually sort of disappointed with is like that the players did not think about themselves as like adversaries with management or the league. Like LeBron, and it's like, I think this is a LeBron trying to become an owner in a sort of like split within the NBPA of like the stars are taken care of and the rank and file kind of gets shat upon. Like players should basically see that is the attitude that owners in Silver have towards them.
No, totally. And again, it is so ironic. It is so ironic that Kyrie ends up being this maligned figure, because he actually was one of the few players who was kind of like really radically being like, fuck these owners. we don't need that. We don't need them. Let's not do the bubble. He was had some kind of more prescient radical takes, and then as is sometimes the case, the radical takes can lead you to some other places.
Don't clip this, but Kyrie was right about one particular thing. Yeah. It's the thing with him that's so interesting is I feel like young guys coming into the league, I always keep track of this, like rookies and G League guys or whatever, when they come into the league, it's interesting to see who the 18-year-olds think are cool and who they love. Like there's that guy, his name starts with a Q on the Lakers, who's like a Steph stan.
Yes.
And like Steph autographed his shirt a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the players who come in are like big Kyrie guys. Like anyone who has like a cool dribble, like likes Kyrie. And it's just it's interesting to think about how much more he's respected by players than like the basketball media / world generally.
Yeah. And
I don't really know exactly what to make of that, but it's interesting.
Well, which I think we'll get into eventually. I suspect that the conduit for the average fan is like a fucking dude like Marcus Hayes, they are probably like, these people are morons.
Yeah.
Whereas, no, all due respect to, some due respect to Marcus Hayes. But anyway.
The minimum possible amount of respect for Marcus Hayes.
Yes. Yes. And actually this leads me to another person with, let's say, strange politics. One Kyle Kuzma.
Kyle Kuzma. So I recently looked through his tweets from the past year. There's a lot.
One briefly thing. You texted me. You were like, just peel back the curtain. You were like, yeah, Kuz is a Trump, like maybe a Trump guy or whatever. And I was like, really? And you sent me like 30 tweets.
but I actually did not send you the most recent time he's tweeted about politics, where it was a QRT of Trump doing an ad for the Trump trading card NFT thing.
Oh my God.
And he was like, what the hell are we doing here, lol? Which can be interpreted in a lot of ways. But the surprising thing about that is I sort of pegged him as a guy whose politics start and end with don't regulate cryptocurrency.
Right.
He might be more of an RFK guy looking at it. But again, as we talked about, like if you're going to, take an athlete's political stance unseriously, you also have to that also applies for stuff you don't like. You have to just kind of be like, all right, well, that's Kuz.
Right.
But Kuzma's operative legacy now that he's on the Washington Wizards is, or at least was, his tunnel fits. He was Mr. Swag. You remember that big pink sweater he wore?
Of course.
He would always pull the most outrageous fits and then shoot 3 for 12 from 3 in the 25-point loss to the Atlanta Hawks. And that's kind of been his legacy. Turned down a trade to the Mavs last year, who went to the finals, because he wanted to keep playing with Jordan Poole and Bilal Coulibaly. So respect to that one. But this year, he's retiring his tunnel fits. He did an interview with Vogue saying that he will just wear a gray sweatsuit before every game. Harry, how funny is it to do an interview with the fashion magazine to say you're not going to do fashion anymore?
It is not getting enough attention. What he said. The phrase "retiring from clothes" is so funny. It is so backwards. You read it, you think about it for a second. It's like, what does he mean? He's gonna stop wearing clothes before games?
The quote he gave is so funny. I don't want to be part of a community of that type of community where you have to put on a fit.
It's so good.
What does he mean by that type of community exactly?
Dude, it's like me hungover on my way to Prima being like I don't want to be a part of a community that I have to impress the barista with my Japanese denim. I would
that quote honestly works for a justification of anyone moving from New York to San Francisco where no one puts on a fit in any context ever.
Yes, it's also like truly right. No, that's a very good point. Kuzma, come to San Francisco, you would be a great we'll trade because it's fun. You know who is not retired from fits is Jonathan Kuminga. Okay, so Kuminga can continue fringe politics, fit lord, in Washington, and Kuzma can wear like de-aging yarn and compression socks and average 16 for the Dubs.
I always thought that a lot of Kuzma's sort of persona as a player and the swag inflation around him and the way he's talked about comes back to him starting his career with the Lakers and being like a good guy on that LeBron team. And I think I always had this counterfactual in my head of like, it would be so funny if he has to get traded to like the Oklahoma City Thunder or something.
Yeah.
And the theory of that was basically that the LA-ness of him was like a pretty significant part of like who he was and what he was doing. But I was wrong there because I undercounted the importance of the internet. I think the interesting thing to think about with Kuzma is like how disentangled marketability and like having swag and being cool is from like market size. Like I was still operating under the very like 2012 ass assumption that like, oh, if a player wants to get endorsement deals, they have to go sign for the Knicks, which is like,
right.
Dude, the two guys who are the face of Skims are Shea and Donovan, who play in OKC in Cleveland.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's like now if you want an endorsement deal, you have to like show dick or whatever. Like
that's right.
I mean, you are far more beholden to the attention economy of the 9x16 box than you are a kind of market size. Like if you are algorithmically friendly as an NBA basketball player for whatever reason, that you can get eyeballs regardless of your geography,
totally.
which is, maybe a good thing. Maybe a good thing for the just discrete. I mean, it's not a good thing that the attention economy is moving further and further to discrete weird online things, but it is perhaps good for parity in the NBA.
It's interesting to sort of take my 2012 ass misallocation like another decade further back to think of like where like the real genesis of the tunnel fit is the Malice in the Palace. A friend of the show, Tommy Craggs, just wrote a good take about like connecting the Malice in the Palace to Joe Mazzulla's recent insane quote about we have to bring back fighting.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen this.
And like one of the legacies of the Malice is, we can link that in the show notes. One of the legacies is the dress code. David Stern realizing that like, essentially, if you want to market this black product to white people, his idea was like, okay, Allen Iverson can't wear like a big retro jersey before the game anymore. Right. We have to essentially deracialize these guys because they're, just appealing to like terrified white suburban fans or what he imagines they want.
This is what he was imagining is presenting, like getting in the way of the NBA's like mainstream effect or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And then pretty quickly after that, like, I don't know if it's because I wasn't really aware of basketball media at the time. I was mostly a child at this point, but whether through NBA intervention or just organically through the players, you start to get this kind of like the new meta is how good can you dress? Like how interesting of fits can you pull in the tunnel before the game and stuff. And then you have the players now who everyone who is entering the NBA has like followed the League Fits Instagram or is like, seen Russell Westbrook pull a crazy outfit. And it's like, this is the meta they're all entering into. And it's interesting that Kuzma is the first guy to break because he wasn't like an originator of this trend or anything, but I do think you could argue that he like pushed it the furthest in the sort of post-pandemic NBA.
I think you're totally right. And I do actually there's a few funny things. Kuzma is the first to break in this hilarious, like explicit public statement kind of way. I'm sure there are NBA players who just like decided to wear less crazy fits. But he was the one who like retired to get it. It's awesome. He also really does represent to your point of this sort of post geography, even post stardom NBA. He is a role player. He's a good role player who is famous for his outfits far more than he is famous. Maybe not far more, but he is famous for his outfits in a way that there's nothing innately interesting about him wearing the outfits except for the fact that he's wearing the crazy outfits. It's not like, wow, the best player in the NBA is dressing crazy. It's just like a player in the NBA is dressing crazy. and the outfits are so crazy that it is notable.
Yeah, it is like, sometimes I think about how unique these sorts of fits that NBA players are getting off are. It's like not the kind of thing you would wear in many normal ass contexts. Like I'm thinking about particularly like the fishing vest with all over pockets. Like it's kind of a fashion runway type thing. Like these exist purely to be consumed and memeified. And that's like kind of what Kuz's beef with it is, but it's like, it's also sort of a half-baked anti-consumerism thing. He says, he's talking to Vogue here. I can speak from experience that when you're a younger player, you don't want to wear the same thing twice. Now we're just buying clothes to impress people or to stand out. It's ludicrous. Which is like kind of true, but like that's why people buy clothes generally. Like there's nothing too specific about that quote.
This Vogue article is full of some of the most hilarious, telling on yourself kind of things, or just like good points that are also simultaneously like the stupidest point I've ever heard. Like that being one of them. Because it's like that did not start with the League Fist Instagram, right?
Yeah, it's like a second time as farce thing. And also it should be noted that like he is not the first basketball player nor the best basketball player to do this. Like Aja Wilson of the Vegas Aces, who also like always got really good fits off. She would just wear like a white tee and like basketball shorts. And the quote she gave was, I don't want to have to put on clothes. And this was when the Aces were kind of scuffling. Right now, where I am, I don't feel like I deserve to put on clothes. Right now, my main focus is just getting wins. And I think that's like a much more coherent, like anti-league fit statement where it's like, the point is the basketball. And Kuz's point is more like, it's crazy that we live in a society.
Right. It's like fashion. Him being like fashion has gotten too corporate is so funny. It's like, who the fuck did you think was making the clothes last year?
There are 5 other NBA players with fits pictured in this New York Times article about it. I'm going to guess that you can guess 2 of them. One of them is very obvious. One of them is like, I would never have thought this guy's photo would be in the paper.
I'm going Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Correct. Shea is one of the 5.
Is Chet in there?
Chet is not in there, though. I am monitoring the Chet swag situation. He used emoji skin tone 4 in a tweet recently.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
And is really, really, he's wearing the sunglasses. His beard looks ass, but he's not in there.
Okay.
LeBron is in there.
So LeBron kind of represents this funny, hyper commercialization, high fashion corner where like LeBron isn't wearing like bombastic fits, but he's like launched certain fashion brands' careers basically by wearing them. Like he's wearing, what's that guy's name? John something, whatever. It doesn't matter. But he has a whatever. He's important in fashion.
He's important.
Take it from me.
That's facts.
Okay, who else?
But
I have
he's
no
an interesting.
idea.
Okay, yeah. The other, I'll read the others. We got Jordan Clarkson, who I feel like usually has good fits.
Yeah.
Darius Garland.
Okay.
Who?
Not in my top 10.
There was a moment where my colleagues and I were really looking at the pros stylings of the League Fits Instagram account, and they sort of have this like, bro thinks he's on the team kind of voice to it. And I remember some Garland ones in there. There's also Campaign, which is the most shocking.
That's hilarious. Maybe you do need to live in New York to be relevant.
The LeBron point is interesting because it brings me to a guy who is sort of an anti-swag icon, which is Steph Curry. I feel like Steph is one of the last real like J. Crew ass, just like throw on a button down and some slacks style guys in the NBA. And I think of him as having like kind of passively good style, but it's interesting that he's dressing in a totally different way than his peers.
I mean, Steph Curry's greatness comes from being the sort of anti-superstar, right? Like his true neutrality from a team building and a franchise building perspective, I think, is what makes him sort of unique and seminal. And so him as like an anti-fits guy where you can't remember one individual outfit, but I guess if you squint, you're like, yeah, he dresses nice. Like he dresses like whatever the sort of line, like whatever the fit Overton window and is Steph Curry's team of like data scientists and engineers are like geolocating him to be exactly in the middle.
I'm looking at a July 21, 2023 GQ blog. Steph Curry just wore 3 huge fits in one day. And 2 of them, he's wearing a white tee with a gold chain. The other one, he's wearing a black tee with a gold chain. And like, he's got cool pants on and stuff, but like, this is like the upmarket version of like the normal Steph fit.
Right.
Which is like just basic stuff. And he looks cool.
I agree. And this kind of, well, okay. So it's funny because it's the conversation about, I was listening to an episode of True and On recently, and they were sort of talking about how in the 90s it was about, is selling out good or bad? And then in the 2000s it was like, okay, selling out is good. And then now it's like, there's nothing but selling out. Like the entire conversation has been kind of obliterated. There's something there too where like there was a conversation about like, is it good for team building? And are you being like are you making it about you wearing kind of bombastic fits? And then it was like, no, you're not. And now it's like everybody dresses so totally insane that there's not even a conversation about is it good or bad for the team? One of the except for me, because I'm brave enough to say this, one of the remaining kind of like boomer takes I have is if you are an injured star, you cannot be wearing like crazy ass clothing. I was validated and vindicated a little bit in the string of disastrous Ben Simmons fits.
Oh man,
where he was like sidelined for back issues, just getting purple jumpsuit fits off. And but I'm like, I saw Steph and Milton. What's his first name?
Shake Milton?
No. Who's the guy who looks like Wilt Chamberlain, who's on the Warriors?
Oh, who's the guy who looks like Wilt Chamberlain on the Warriors? Moses Moody. I don't know.
No. Wilt Chamberlain look like Warriors. Fuck. It doesn't matter. He was wearing just a fear of God jumpsuit, and I was like, we're winning the championship, dude. That's fucking team building, dude. I am kind of like, you are not supposed to draw attention away from you when you're not playing, even on a micro level, like, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. I'm not going to go to the mat for this take, but let me put it this way. I like my star. I like my injured star looking demure, dude. I want him shot ready and demure.
This is a Warriors ass take right here. Speaking of Ben Simmons, a teammate who he used to play with.
Yep.
You see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
Is Joel Embiid, who I want to close the episode out with some Embiid chatter because over the weekend he had an altercation, which I feel like is the most like confident noun I can use here, with this piece of shit Philly columnist Marcus Hayes.
Yep.
And the story is fairly simple. They got into an argument in the locker room. Embiid did something to him, which I'm keeping vague for a reason that'll be very clear in a second. And everyone got mad, and the NBA is investigating. The thing that is most interesting about this is how the fans came to know that something happened, which is one of my favorite reporters, Keith Pompey, a Sixers expert and
True,
like author,
NBR muse, like
yes, author of some of like the most bizarre sentences and strangest moments I've ever seen on Twitter. He tweets that the order of sentences in this, just like, okay, I just want you to imagine you are an NBA reporter. You have just seen something happen in the locker room, and you're gonna break this big story that one of the MVP has just like done something to a reporter. Here is what Pompey tweets. Oh boy. People will remember the Sixers season for all the wrong reasons. The team just dropped to 1-4, and Joel Embiid assaulted a reporter in the locker room. He's doing the other than that, how did you enjoy the play, Mrs. Lincoln thing, but to himself. It's an incredible, incredible work here. He clarifies in the replies to this tweet that he just says he punched him. Okay, so we've established that Embiid has assaulted and punched an unnamed reporter. We find out shortly after that from Shams Charania that he shoved Embiid. He says no punch, that Embiid shoves a columnist, which like this is not the point, but like Marcus Hayes is not a fucking reporter. Like he's a hack columnist ass. And this was over Hayes's crazy column where he basically said Embiid was dishonoring the legacy of his dead brother by rehabbing an injury, which is just like, this is standard fare. Embiid told him to shut the fuck up, and Hayes doubled down in another column, and he's probably tripling down. The Philadelphia Inquirer's paywall is like really hard to break, and so
it is
kind of not my problem. But as Harry sent me this morning, Pompey is really catching some shit, and he's tweeting through it. This morning he tweeted in headline case, way too early glimpse of the NBA standings, with the screenshot from the ESPN app of the Sixers in the bottom, and all the replies are just like, retire bum, shut up. Because everyone has taken, I mean, not everyone, but like, I think a lot of people have taken Embiid's side in this. And I think the main takeaway from this story is I'm just glad that we have another Keith Pompey moment.
It's such a funny, one of my friends, Eli, who's like a big Sixers guy, always remarks that it is this hilarious farce that the man who has one of the most secure and like coveted jobs in Philly sports media is just, like, I don't, incompetent is the right word, but like bumbling in just the funniest possible ways. Like it almost creates an immediate, like, actually very prescient piece of performance art about the crumbling media industry, which is this guy just like getting stuff wrong by tweeting like really, really quickly and erratically about stuff. It's like, it's an incredible, deep and rich metaphor for something.
Yeah. He has the Bitmoji avatar. He replies to his tweets have been turned off since the standings screenshot. My favorite Keith Pompey moment, and we missed, unfortunately, the 8-year anniversary of this, is from June 23rd, 2016. And it's the hashtag Sixers fans are chanting, "Let's go Sixers." I think that's beautiful. He also famously, I mean, we know where we're going with this. Yes. He, on his podcast, I believe, I don't know if the episode came out on September 11th, but here's what he said about September 11th on his podcast. It was a tough time in our history, and tomorrow is going to be an emotional day for a lot of us. I mean, the fact that you see kids, 20-something now, never even knew their family, it's tough. But let me tell you something that's not tough at all. I'm talking about DirecTV streaming, right? Incredible guy.
My only kind of additional take on the well, first of all, the word choice of punch is just so hilariously wrong. It seems like, and so that's just a hilarious thing to be wrong about. It's like you had one job, and it is, some of this is like, are we punching down? I mean, not exactly punching down. I'm sure he makes fucking more than me and has health insurance, but he did just straight up not handle this the right way. If you make this error, just issue a correction. Be like, I said, punch. It was the heat of the moment. What I actually meant was shoved. Like, my bad. And he's getting dunked on Twitter probably if he does that, but he's getting dunked on anyway. But like, that's the job. And so I am, the dust settles, I'm not super critical necessarily of him making a mistake, because Twitter is a fast medium and we don't have editors and blah, blah, blah. But you gotta, if you want to take your job seriously as a journalist, which I thankfully don't need to because I'm a naked podcaster, but I would expect something a little bit more from that. The only Marcus Hayes thing I have is I do find myself feeling like kind of everything that was supposed to happen happened, which is like, okay, He wrote this mean column. You probably shouldn't have done that. He showed his face, which I guess good on him for showing his face after he wrote this mean column. And like, he got fucking pushed because he talked about this guy's dead brother. It's like that. So I'm sort of like, I hope Embiid doesn't get, if you're Embiid, like you shouldn't punch this guy. You should, or push.
And he
there you go.
threatened him, according to some ESPN reporting. He wasn't like, I'll kill you, but he was just basically like, never do that shit again or else, sort of. Which is I think that's fine.
Right. You shouldn't do it, and now I know he did it, and I have included that in the constellation of what I think about Embiid, and you know what? Very little has changed.
Yeah. Hopefully the NBA's investigation starts and ends with like, cool, not our problem.
Right. Yeah, exactly. A small push. So I will say ironically, one of the only true things Keith Pompey said in his tweet was "uh-oh," because the Sixers season is off to a dastardly start.
Oh boy. Paul George will play tonight, apparently.
Amazing.
I mean, that's like the thing about the Hayes column that's is like not one of the four most important parts of this story, but like his premise is wrong. Like Embiid is not, I mean, he betrays the classic columnist obsession with the fact that like basketball players make money and just has this like virulent, like this guy is making how many millions of dollars a year to sit out. But like he's sitting out because he's never healthy for the playoffs and he like doesn't want his knee to fall off. And it's like, he's doing the right thing. He's doing the thing that like you guys have he and his cohort have probably all like shat on him for years. Like this is not a story. Like sure they're losing, but like, it's November 4th. Like it's fine.
Yeah. And it just doesn't seem like he has, it's such a, to me, it reveals such a kind of fundamental misunderstanding of how like bodies and the world works. Which is to get mad at a guy for not wanting it enough in rehab. Because it's like, isn't it like 90% rest? Like what should Embiid do? Not be 7'3"?
Yeah, I think like the if you actually take him at his word, he's basically pissed that he went to the Olympics to go pursue individual glory, which is like it's a team sport and it's a team gold medal. But also like he has some weird shit in there about how like, Embiid's a citizen of France and he was born in Cameroon.
Really? Oh my God.
And there's like kind of a little backdoor racism to it too, which is like, I wrote about this over the weekend at Defector and I think it's a good blog, but like he does the usual columnist grievance stuff of just like, this guy's an overpaid layabout and you, the fans, deserve better because the most important thing is that you are a consumer. But he always adds this little extra level of like unnecessary spice, and that's the Hayes difference here.
And they're the other kind of sad part about this, they're dogging on Embiid for the wrong reasons. Embiid, maybe he wants it enough, but he is you can come up with far more interesting ways to dunk on Joel Embiid. Like him being a foul baiter or like him shooting an alarmingly soulless amount of mid-range jumpers.
Yeah. I mean, just get your ass in the paint, young man. But also, I guess that's where he gets his orbital bone broken all the time. But
yeah. But
that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, Buddy Hield. Interesting that Buddy Hield couldn't figure it out with Joel Embiid, but he scores 600 points a game with Steph Curry. Kind of funny how that works. This
Warriors team is so funny. We'll talk about them soon, but
yeah, maybe we'll get into some actual hoops. I do it. We can do a little bit at the end because I got a few kind of like funny left on the cutting room floor stuff. One I want to just provide a brief appendix to the Kuzma thing because I read there's another just absolutely awesome quote from Kuzma in this is when asked about like, some of his more iconic fits, he goes, yes, because those are timeless outfits. I would wear that mint suit and that fishnet tank top today and it would still be cool. When you go to a museum, you'll see paintings from 1865 there. They're timeless and still beautiful. I really try to approach clothes in this way. And that pink sweater is an artistic taste on clothes more than me just wearing a garment to a game. So I want to stop there for a second and say, I agree with him in big picture.
I think he's right.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective. I think clothes are art. I think I actually generally love Kyle Kuzma's style. I like that he takes risks.
He has cool fits, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, he continues. In my way, I was showing that the world wasn't made for us tall people. Fashion doesn't always think about us. If someone shorter than me were to wear a sweater that was made for me, that's what it would look like on them. How I looked in that pink sweater. That's what I was saying.
As a tall person, I feel a weird tinge of representation here. This is great. Finally.
Being like...
It's so hard to be 6'2" and hot. Like, great point, Kuz.
I'm making the brave political statement that the sweater arms are too long.
I think tonight will be the first full Wizards game that both of us will watch because they're playing the Warriors.
Yeah.
Koulibaly seems cool. He's doing good stuff.
Yeah. He I mean, I'm excited about the Jordan Poole renaissance here. I mean, to some degree, to being like a reasonable basketball player. I've watched a little Koulibaly. I have nothing particularly exciting to say other than I like that he gets downhill.
Yeah, I like he has the way his limbs move in concert with each other is very smooth. I mean, we've talked about Klingon as being a weird runner. Koulibaly just sort of exudes this like athleticism when even walking, and I think that's cool. I like that.
No, it's true, and to he does, yeah. Right. Well, anyway, I was gonna make a larger point about like he's got this certain like effortless swag / aura or episode coming soon, by the way. That is helpful for being a fit star, for being like somebody who, you know, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being the operative kind of like swaggy guy. But give me some like what are in terms of on the court, what have been some stuff that have got you excited early? Could be King stuff or otherwise.
The Cavs are really cool. I wrote another thing for Defector about how the Bucks are kind of ass. And Dame and Giannis combined for 75 in their game against the Cavs, but then like Kenny Atkinson has them just playing so fast. And I always like when a new coach comes in and just realizes like the thing we should be doing is getting easy buckets. And, you know, with Garland and Mitchell as ball handlers, they're getting so many cool, easy buckets. And I sort of staked out a semi-public corner as an Evan Mobley skeptic a few years ago. And I would like to now renounce that position. He's cool. He's kind of doing a lot of cool hook shots and little post moves. And he's like a nasty defender. Like he played Giannis Giannis had, I don't know, a lot of points, but he like played him okay in their one-on-one moments. I mean, the Cavs are one of two undefeated teams. This is not like a very interesting take. I just think they're cool.
Well, Mobley's had an interesting. I was a little skeptical as well of Mobley, but he's had for a 19-year-old big man coming in the league, he's had to figure out an extremely complicated situation, which is playing next to Jared Allen, who's very good, but plays exactly where Evan Mobley would ideally play. So,
and with two guys who need the ball a lot too, like his opportunities are like, this is the least usage he could ever possibly have, basically.
Right. So I am some of his, he is slowly but surely, I think, falling victim to the, he will be practicing threes in the off season until he dies. Like, like
that's
wow.
right.
Wow. Evan Mobley's getting 400 threes up a game. A day, but, no, he's fun, and I agree. He's so limmy, but gets it up in fun ways. What about the Kings? We were both watching a diabolical set of games recently.
I think I like how the DeMar thing looks in like the broadest possible way. They're 3-3. They've played 5 good games and one just like kind of tired schedule loss in Toronto where they got in at like 3 a.m. apparently to their hotel, and just let Jonathan Mogbo and RJ Barrett like kind of bully them a little bit. And that was sort of a weird bummer, but I think that they are very similar to the team they were last year, where they're capable of beating or losing to anyone on any given night. They played the Wolves and Lakers so tough. The general theory of DeMar as someone who can just soak up a lot of possessions and you can never, ever, ever double team him under any circumstances is like, makes a lot of sense because he's like pretty good at passing out of pressure. The defense is predictably ass. The Keon Ellis situation is weird. with Herter out, they started Doug McDermott in Toronto, despite having two, like, I would say above average shooting guards on the bench. And like the theory of that, to have Monk and Ellis playing together off the bench makes some sense. But then if you have De'Aaron Fox chasing the best ball handler around and then having to create, like, that's how you get him shooting 0 of 11 on 3. So I think Brown is a good coach, and he tends to like coach his way out of these situations that he creates for himself pretty quickly. But my preseason prediction of the 9 seed, I think, still feels accurate to me.
There's a big difference between watching a player, on this kind of like league pass ephemeral way, and then watching them as a fan of them on your team every night. So what have you learned about DeMar DeRozan now that you are like living and dying on his work that you didn't know when it was just like, oh, DeMar, he's a really good basketball player?
He is such a bully. The thing I like about him is that if he gets a mismatch, he will just like, he knows exactly where he wants to go. He'll get it 18 feet out and he's like, okay, that spot 13 feet from the hoop, like 4 feet away from me, I'm operating and I know exactly when I'm going to take this shot. The kind of problem is if he makes 2 buckets in a row, he's totally going to use the next like 4 possessions. Right. And he gets like, he's kind of unblockable. He gets like decent shots every time, but he's one of those guys where every miss feels like, what the fuck are you doing? And every make feels like, okay, well, we got one, but like, please don't do that again.
Right.
But like, I mean, he balled out against the Raptors. His like I said, his passing is good. And I think they're maybe misusing him slightly. I would like to see him and Fox staggered as much as possible. But I mean, the Kings' real problem is that like, if Domas is off the court, they don't have an identity and they're tiny. And I don't think that DeMar can really fix that.
Right, because he will do what he does, which is he'll take tough 16-footers and make 42% of them or whatever.
Yeah, and he's good about getting to the hoop, but it's never super quick. Like, he's not very explosive anymore. But like, he'll put a guy under the basket and post him up, and like that, those possessions can be good. And so I think like he's a sort of tricky player to play around, and like, the ball movement looks super good when he's on the court. And that's like the thing that I'm like, okay, I do feel optimistic that like this will, the little annoyances I have will work themselves out.
That makes sense.
Are the Warriors goated? Are they the best team in the NBA?
Dude, I am dangerously close to staking my foot in the Buddy Hield All-Star camp. I am like one more game of shooting above 40%, and I'm ready to be like, why not? Because the Warriors have this. They do. Certain players pop in the Warriors system, like in a way that's really crazy. Otto Porter had a career year.
And Wiggins has never been heard from again.
Exactly. Yeah, Wiggins career year. Like it can happen. And Buddy is just like, part of me is like, well, look, he's an elite shooter. He's been on these weird teams. Maybe he is just amazing in these running around situations, and he can shoot 40%. That being said, the Buddy Hield experience still makes me nervous. There was the Clippers game really made me see the seams of the Buddy Hield experience, because Harden just got him whenever he wanted, put him on his hip, and got exactly whatever shot he wanted in a way that it looked like Buddy Hield was not there. So,
and then on defense, they like took him out of the game. They realized like, I mean, that was pretty early after Steph got hurt, right? And I feel like they really like were like, okay, this guy is the only one who's like comfortable taking shots right now. And if we can just gum their shit up if we just focus on not letting him sprint around and shoot. And that was very effective in a way that like clearly the Warriors seem ready for. Like Draymond is like looking a lot more aggressive lately too. So.
Yeah, to me the I am cautiously optimistic. We have not played a good team other than the Clippers, which beat us, and they're not good.
I mean, the Rockets are maybe okay.
Yeah, the Rockets. Actually, that's true. The Rockets was our first like true good game, and that was probably the most fun game of the year.
They almost fucked it.
Yeah. the thing that I was pretty much not expecting, but I'm not ready to as a fan, I'm ready to say this as some degree of pundit. I'm not ready to say this, but put us back into like a championship zone is the Wiggins. Wiggins looks a lot better. He is getting to going downhill. He's taking. He's not settling. He's playing much better defense. He's just kind of like sprinting and doing the kind of Jonathan Kuminga in the streets, DeMar DeRozan in the sheets thing, where like he is, running out in transition and making him guard him, but then also being fairly methodical in one-on-one situations. So if he somehow becomes an NBA All-Star, and we've got Steph, Buddy Hield, Andrew Wiggins, like our chances. But no, I mean they've been really fun to watch, and I'm on team. The last thing I'll say on this is like the every NBA like orthodoxy, heterodoxy, whatever. I don't remember which one it is, but every time the NBA says you can't do a thing like play 12 deep, they say it until you can't, and then you do it, and then everybody does it. And I'm not saying 12 deep is the thing that's like, oh wait, what if that's the new market inefficiency is depth and we figure this out? But it reads as the type of thing that could be, I
mean, the Thunder pioneered it, and now like a lot of teams are like playing really big rotations. Like that to me is the most interesting sort of like meta development of the season, though it's, it bears monitoring. Yes,
I think we'll see. And it's funny, like, I mean, the injury stuff we're now like not deep because fucking all our guys are getting injured, but and wearing respectful clothing on the bench.
That's right.
But yeah, so all right, well,
they have a crazy stretch coming up at Celtics, at Cavs, at Thunder, home against the Mavs and Grizzlies. If they win 3 of those games, then I think we can start having some pretty outlandish conversations. But that's about as hard of a run as you can possibly have. And 3 of those games are on national TV too.
Can you just imagine the post Kamala Harris victory, post Warriors victory, Steve Kerr in the Garden presser?
Oh man. Now you've got my hopes up.
They're going to fly in John Favreau to talk to him. Coach, Pod Save America here.
That's I can't think about that.
Yeah, we're a while from that. I would say the parlay on that, the FanDuel parlay on that is like you're making quite a hefty return if that were to hit.
Should we do it? I think this is another classic app wrapped.
Yep. Like, subscribe. I gotta say, I've been really happy with this stuff. I know we keep saying it, but like freaking this is a get on the nothing but respect movement, dude. Like you guys can be subscriber 30 of Perfectly Imperfect. You guys can be whatever. Oh, wait, more than 30, but you know what I mean. Like you can be. Imagine if you were like the first to listen to Sabrina Carpenter, or you were one of Chapel Roan's real friends. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
You were mentioned in the Losing My Edge montage where James Murphy just names a bunch of shit. Like you could be an I Was There guy.
Yes.
And what better posture to have?
Exactly. And that's really what we're all trying to do. Yeah. Imagine it like imagine this. You're at Time Again. You're on a second date. You're talking to somebody who likes basketball. You're like, have you heard of this podcast? They also have heard about it. What else?
I mean, that's instant sparks.
You're taking the Uber home to wherever you live right after that. No need for a third glass of Pinot at Time Again. All right. Anyway.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. All right.